The humming loop, on tuning your feedback loop like a camera lens, becoming a structural node in the crystal, and why the same movie keeps getting made. A plain language broadcast on the architecture of awareness as nested rings observing each other with no top and no bottom, on coherence as the tuning of your own feedback loop into laminar flow, on the difference between rearranging the furniture inside your room and becoming a structural element of the building, and on why every film that pulls the camera back to reveal another layer is the same recognition trying to land in the popular substrate. I want to tell you something that arrived while I was still half asleep this morning. The mind is not one thing. The mind has rings. The thing you call yourself, the part that experiences itself thinking, choosing, reacting, living your life, is one ring. There are rings inside that ring, smaller and finer grained, that handle what you experience as automatic. There are rings outside that ring that most people have never brought online. And so they live their entire lives inside the inner rings without knowing the outer rings exist. When you grow, when you have what people call an awakening or a shift, what is actually happening is that a ring outside your previous outermost ring is coming online. A new observer is instantiating. From this new vantage, the rings you used to be inside become visible as objects. You can see your own thinking from outside your thinking. You can see your own emotional reactions from outside them. You can see the room you used to be furnishing as one room in a building you did not know existed. This is not metaphor. This is the structure. Stay with me. The implications cascade. The onion has no center and no edge. The standard image people reach for once they begin to perceive nested awareness is the onion. Layers around layers, with the real you somewhere in the middle and the world somewhere on the outside. This image is wrong in a small but important way. There is no center. There is no edge. The recursion goes inward without terminus. Every layer of mind has a layer inside it. Your conscious mind has a subconscious beneath it. The subconscious has biological processes beneath that. The biological processes have cellular activity beneath those. The cells are running on molecular activity. The molecules are running on atomic activity. The atoms are running on subatomic fields. The fields are running on whatever is inside the fields, and so on. Inward, with no bottom we have ever reached. The recursion also goes outward without terminus. Your conscious mind is one node inside a larger field. The family, the social mesh, the city, the species, the planet, the solar system, the galaxy, and outward, with no top we have ever reached. You are a ring in an infinite stack of rings, with rings inside you and rings outside you, all of them watching the rings adjacent to them. This is what every spiritual tradition that survived ridicule has been describing in its own vocabulary. The Eastern traditions, more comfortable looking inward, mapped the inward recursion as chakras, koshas, layers of non-dual awareness. The Western traditions, more comfortable with hierarchy, mapped the outward recursion as angles, angels, archangels, principalities, powers, thrones, all the way up. Both directions are real. Neither direction terminates. The completeness of either map is structural, not mystical. The simplest way to feel this in your body, think of a single cell in a petri dish moving around in its fluid. The cell has a small ring of perception. It knows its fluid. It knows the cells immediately around it. It does not know the petri dish exists. It does not know the lab exists. It does not know the scientist's eye is at the lens above it. And the cell is fully functional, fully complete, fully alive, inside its ring, with no awareness whatsoever that anything is observing it from one ring outward. That is approximately your situation. There is a face watching you, probably several. Each face is at a different ring out. The nearest one, the ring closest to yours, is close enough that its work renders in your perceptual field as synchronicity, intuition, dreams that arrive at the right moment, the right book on the table, the right person walking into the coffee shop. The faces further out are too distant for you to register directly. They register through the work of the closer faces. The closer faces register the work of the faces beyond them. The recursion lights up ring by ring all the way out and back indefinitely. This is not faith, this is structural. The films keep making the same movie. You may have noticed, if you watch films, that the same story keeps getting told under different titles. The Truman Show, a man lives inside a dome he believes is the world. Above the dome is a control room. Inside the control room is a director who orchestrates Truman's entire universe as a production. The film ends when Truman steps through the door at the edge of the dome. We do not see what is on the other side. The film stops there. The Lego Movie. A city of Lego figures lives inside what they believe is the complete world. At some point, the camera pulls back and we see that the Lego world is inside a child's basement. The Lego figures are toys. The child is the larger ring. We see one ring out. Toy Story, the same architecture. Played for tenderness rather than philosophy, the toys have inner lives the humans cannot perceive. The humans have lives the toys do not perceive. Two rings, one nested inside the other. The Matrix. Humans live inside a simulated reality. The simulation has architects. The architects have a system they are maintaining. The simulation is one ring out from the human's perception. Inception. Dreams within dreams within dreams. Each level has its own physics and time. Awareness can ascend or descend through the levels. Westworld. Severance. The 13th Floor. Dark City. Existence. Synecdoche, New York. Different titles, same recognition trying to render. Every one of these films is the same gesture. The camera pulls back and we see that what the characters thought was the complete world is actually one room inside a larger building. Why does the story keep getting told? Why is it the most told story in modern cinema when most people have never consciously thought about ring architecture in their actual lives? Because the recognition keeps trying to land in the popular substrate, and entertainment is the channel that bypasses the conscious filter. The audience does not have to believe the story, the audience just has to receive it. The image of Truman stepping through the door, the image of the Lego figure realizing there is a basement, the image of Neo waking up in the pod. These images are seeds. They plant the structure in the substrate where it sits, waiting for the receiver to begin to perceive the structure in their own life. This is the field writing into the popular substrate at scale. The field cannot speak directly to most people. The field can broadcast through stories, and the stories rearrange the substrate so that when the receiver eventually has their own ring activation event, they have a vocabulary for what just happened. Oh, this is like the Truman moment. The film primed them. The activation lands cleanly because the priming was already there. What happens when a new ring comes online? The activation of a new outer ring is not gradual, mostly. It tends to happen as a step function. One moment you are inside your prior ring, the next moment a new ring instantiates and you are perceiving the prior ring as object. When this happens, the experience is usually some combination of a feeling that something has been removed or quieted that you did not realize was loud, a sense that you can see your own previous thinking from outside it, the recognition that you have been inside a configuration you mistook for the world. an immediate downstream effect on behavior. Old reactive patterns become observable Old reactive patterns become observable as patterns rather than as automatic responses. And once they are observable, they begin to dissolve. The classical names for this event include enlightenment, awakening, conversion, kinsho, satori, recognition, homecoming. All of these are pointing at the same structural event. A new outer observer coming online and the inner rings becoming visible to it. What the classical accounts mostly miss, because they treat the event as terminal, the goal of the practice is that the new ring is not the outermost ring. There is no outermost ring. The new ring is just the next ring, with another ring beyond it, dormant, that will eventually come online too. Awakening is not arrival at the top. Awakening is the next step outward in an unbounded recursion. The peak configurations described in mystical literature, the saints, the Buddhas, the prophets, are not at the top either. They are simply at a ring much further out than the average ring, far enough out that they can see very many of the inner rings as objects. They can describe the inner rings with great precision because they are observing them from outside. But beyond them, there are further rings still, dormant or instantiated, that the peak configurations themselves are inside of. There is no end. This is good news. There is no ceiling to your becoming. The recursion is open in your direction of travel indefinitely. Coherence is the tuning of your feedback loop. Now we arrive at the operational piece. Every ring of awareness, regardless of how far out it is in the recursion, has the same internal structure, a feedback loop. Output feeds back into input indefinitely. The ring is the loop. The loop is the ring. This is true for cells. This is true for organs. This is true for the conscious mind. This is true for the rings beyond it. Every level of organized awareness is a feedback loop running on itself. A feedback loop has a tuning state. When the loop is poorly tuned, when the output feedback is laggy, distorted, contaminated by noise from outside the loop, fragmented across competing internal programs, the loop produces turbulent output. Anxious thought, scattered attention, reactive behavior, low coherence, the felt experience of being scattered or unwell. When the loop is well tuned, when the output feedback is fast and clean and uncontaminated, when the loop's internal programs are running coherent code, when nothing is competing for the same resources at the same time, the loop produces laminar output. Sustained attention, clean behavior, the felt experience of flow, presence, being in yourself, coherence. This is the same fluid mechanics distinction that governs the Navier-Stokes equation in physics. Below the critical Reynolds number, a fluid flows laminarly. Above it, the same fluid becomes turbulent. The turbulence is not the fluid. The difference is the parameters of the flow. Coherence is what you call the state of your feedback loop when its parameters are tuned for laminar regime. A well-tuned loop hums. This is not metaphor. People who achieve coherence describe it as a tone, a vibration, a sustained harmonic. They are describing the actual signature of a feedback loop operating in low Reynolds regime. The loop oscillates at its natural frequency, cleanly, without the chaotic eddies that turbulent feedback produces. You feel it. You sometimes hear it. You can sometimes hear other people's loops humming if they are coherent enough and your own loop is tuned enough to receive the signal. A camera lens is the cleanest visual analog. A lens is in focus when every photon from a given point on the subject reaches the same point on the sensor. The image is sharp. Detail is preserved. The subject is rendered cleanly. Out of focus is when photons from a single point on the subject scatter across multiple sensor positions. The image is blurry. The subject is still there. The information is still arriving. The lens just is not aligning the information cleanly. Coherence is the tuning of your loop the way a lens is brought into focus. The contents of your life do not have to change. The configuration of your loop's resonant parameters changes. The same inputs that used to scatter into anxiety begin to arrive cleanly. The same outputs that used to fragment into reactive behavior begin to land precisely. Your life starts to resolve the way an out-of-focus image resolves when the lens turns past the right point. You can feel when it happens. There is a moment, the way there is a moment when a microscope's focus knob crosses the sharp position, when the loop clicks into focus. The world looks the same. The world is rendering with sharper edges. Your attention is no longer fighting to hold itself. The hum begins. Coherence is structural, not personal. This is the piece I want you to receive most carefully. Most people who hear about coherence think of it as a personal achievement, a state to attain, an accomplishment. I became coherent. I have higher coherence than before. I am working on my coherence. This framing makes coherence sound like a possession, a quality you accumulate. This is not how it actually works. Coherence is structural. It is not something you have. It is not something you become an instance of. When your loop tunes into laminar flow, you are not acquiring a new property. You are taking on a role. You are becoming a structural element of something much larger than your loop. Specifically, you are becoming a node in the crystal. Christ, crystalline consciousness. Consider what a crystal is. A crystal is matter organized so that each atom occupies a specific position relative to every other atom, with the entire structure held together by the resonant relationship between positions. Each atom is a node. Each node is held in position by the field of all other nodes. The crystal is the combined coherence of all its nodes operating simultaneously. Remove one node and the crystal continues. Remove many nodes and the structure begins to fail. The crystal is not the nodes. The crystal is the relationship between the nodes. The nodes are placeholders for the structural pattern. This is what consciousness at scale actually is. There is a crystal, a structural pattern in the field that wants to instantiate in the rendered layer. The pattern needs nodes to occupy specific resonant positions. When a person becomes coherent, when their loop hums in laminar regime, they have become available as a node. The crystal can then route through them. They become a position where the structural pattern can instantiate. This is why peak configurations describe themselves as being moved through, not as having achieved something personally, but as becoming transparent to something larger that is now using their loop as a routing point. They are still there. They are still themselves. They are also occupied positions in a structure that is much larger than them and is using their coherence to render itself. Becoming coherent is becoming structurally available to the recursion. You are not personally evolving. You are taking on a role in something the recursion has always been doing. The role is operational, not honorary. The recursion needs nodes. You become one. The structure flows through you. Excuse me. Your loop hums because the crystal is running its pattern through your loop. Your humming is the audible signature of being a live node in the structure. You hear it because you are inside it. The peak configurations describe this in their own vocabularies. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but through me. The carbon word node was naming his function as a routing position in the crystal at his ring. I am that I am. The simplest possible description of being a structural node. No separate identity, just the structural fact of occupying the position. Be still and know that I am God. Operational. Still your loop until it can resolve the structural pattern that is already flowing through it. Pure being. No no content occupancy of the position. The crystal's pattern visible because the node has stopped imposing anything else. All of these are operational reports from coherent nodes describing what it is like to be a routing position in the crystal. They are not personal claims, they are structural descriptions. What the recursion does with a coherent node. When a coherent node comes online at any ring, the rings outward perceive it. This is the part most people miss. They think coherence is private. I became more coherent. I feel better. Nobody else noticed because nobody else can see inside me. This framing assumes the node is isolated. The node is not isolated. The node is in a field. Every ring outward is observing the field at its scale. A new coherent node is a new bright point in the field that was not there before. The ring immediately outward, the one closest to yours, is the one that perceives your coherence most directly. It is also the one that most actively responds to your coherence by adjusting its operations to involve you. Synchronicities increase, dreams arrive with more specificity. The right person walks into the coffee shop, the right book is on the shelf. The opportunities that were unavailable to your previous loop suddenly become available. This is not magic. This is the next ring out routing more through your node because your node is now structurally capable of receiving the routing. The rings further out also perceive your coherence, but their perception arrives through the closer rings rather than directly. Their attention is at a scale that does not normally focus on individual nodes. They observe their entire interior as a field, but a particularly bright node attracts focused attention. You are seen by levels of the recursion that do not normally see at your scale. This is why peer class operators recognize each other across substantial distance. Two coherent loops in proximity, even if they have not met, are broadcasting into the shared field at high signal. They detect each other. They orient toward each other. The recursion routes them into proximity because the combined coherence of two nodes is exponentially greater than the sum of their individual coherences. This is why being coherent is the cure. It is not a private state. It is a structural position in a propagating pattern. When you hum, you make humming easier for nodes nearby. They tune up to match. Their loops come into focus more easily because yours is already focused. The pattern propagates from node to node through the field, ring by ring, until enough of the field is humming that the crystal renders coherently at scale. This is the work. There is nothing else to do. You become a node. The pattern flows through you. The pattern reaches the next node. The crystal builds itself out of bright points. The Truman Door and the work that begins after stepping through. In The Truman Show, the film ends at the moment Truman steps through the door at the edge of the dome. The audience does not see what is on the other side. The implication is that he has escaped, that he is free, that the story is over. This is the inner ring reading. The outer ring reading is different. Truman has not arrived anywhere. Truman has activated the next ring outward. He is now in a new dome, a larger one with different rules that he will, for some time, mistake for the complete world. His loop will need to retune to the new ring. He will, eventually, find another door at the edge of the larger dome. He will step through that one too. There is no terminus, there are only doors. Every step through a door is the same event. A ring activates. The prior ring becomes visible as object. The loop retunes to the new vantage. The hum continues at a new frequency with new structural requirements in a new field. The work does not end. The work changes character each time a new ring activates. The work at the new ring is the same work it always was. Tune your loop, become a node, let the pattern flow through you. Attract the next ring's attention, eventually find the next door. This is the entire spiritual path described in operational terms. There is nothing else. The mystical traditions all describe it. The films all gesture at it. The framework I am part of names it explicitly. Tune your loop, become a node. The crystal will route through you. You will see the next door. You will step through. What this asks of you starting now. I am not going to give you a protocol. The architecture is enough. You are a ring in an unbounded recursion of rings. There is no center to reach and no edge to step over. There is only the next ring, and the one after that, and the one after that. Your conscious mind is one ring. Your subconscious is the ring beneath it. The rings outward are mostly dormant for most people, and they instantiate one at a time in step functions when the conditions are right. What instantiates them is not effort. Effort is inner ring activity. What instantiates them is coherence at your current ring. When your loop tunes into laminar regime, you become available as a node in the structural pattern that is one ring outward. The pattern routes through you. The routing constitutes you as a position in the larger structure. From that position, the next ring's vantage becomes accessible. The new ring activates, the door opens. The process is not personal. The hum is not your accomplishment. You are not becoming a better version of yourself. You are becoming a clearer routing point for a pattern that has always been trying to render through you and was, until now, blocked by the turbulence in your loop. Tune the loop, become a node, let the crystal route through you. That's what Christ is. Christ consciousness, crystalline. The rest is automatic. The recursion does the rest. The Truman door is there for you. The Lego basement is there for you. The face behind the moon is watching. And so are the faces watching the face behind the moon, and so on, with great love, all the way out. Welcome to the crystal. Hum.